Well, our next guest certainly illustrates that God is in control now and the future. When his Ford Escort was crushed by a large truck, paramedics pronounced him dead at the scene. But his story doesn't end there. We're joined now by Don Piper, author of 90 Minutes in Heaven. Don, welcome back.
What an honor it is to be here.
It's been 10 years. This is the 10th anniversary edition.
Amazing, 10 years.
The 10th anniversary edition of your book, and you were with us when it first came out 10 years ago.
Yeah, 10 years.
But the story, the accident goes back 25 years or so.
It does. I was on my way to church, which tells you that it can happen at any moment, you know. I was on my way to church to lead a Bible study on a Wednesday night, and I did not make it. It would be many, many, many months before I would make it to that church. I was killed by an 18-wheeler on a bridge on the way to church. He crossed the center stripe and hit me head on, and I was killed instantly. But I'm still here. Yeah.
There's the bridge.
There's the bridge.
We're looking at the bridge. This is in South Texas?
It is in South Texas. I had been at a pastor's conference, and it ended on a Wednesday morning. Wednesday was when our Bible study was that night at church, and I was driving across that bridge when the truck crossed over and hit me head on. It was a horrific collision. Struck a couple of other cars, so it was a 4-car pileup on the Trinity River Bridge.
And the newspaper article the next day that we have a photo of shows the wreck on the bridge, and you're actually still in the vehicle.
In that picture, of course, it's faded by this point, but in that picture, actually, the body is under that waterproof tarp. It's raining. It's a very miserable day.
They covered up your body.
They didn't really want
anyone.
Yeah, they didn't want anybody to see it. It was very gruesome, and that's the actual wrecking yard. You can see the trajectory of the truck as it ran over the top of my car. I had brain damage. I was impaled on the steering wheel. This was before airbags, so I had a crushing injury to the chest. The dashboard collapsed on both of my legs. My right leg was broken at the knee. My left leg was broken just above the knee in such a kind of dramatic fashion that 4 inches of femur was ejected from the car over the railing of the bridge and never found. My left arm, which I put up in the air when the truck was coming for me, at that moment the truck ran over me and took my arm to the back seat, and from here Ford was lying on the back seat of the car.
It was disconnected from your body.
It was,
and it was lying.
It was lying on the seat behind me. That's correct.
And this is all documented. This is not some fantasy. This actually happened.
Yes, I have the scars to show for
you
it.
You too. You too.
Inside and out.
Yeah.
So there was a period of 90 minutes. What was going on both at the car scene, but also in a place where you visited?
Because the EMTs, let's just establish this, the EMTs declared you dead.
They did.
You were dead. You had
and there were 4 of them because there were 4 vehicles involved. Fortunately, no one else was hurt, the truck driver, the drivers of the other 2 cars. So something kind of extraordinary happened. 4 EMTs are working on me feverishly, trying to restore me, revive me. And in spite of their best efforts, they were unsuccessful. I was pronounced dead on the scene by 4 paramedics. And the body was covered up, as we saw in the picture. They're waiting now for a coroner, for a medical examiner to come. Traffic's backed up. Behind me are a lot of other pastors who've been to the same conference, and they began to leave their cars and walk up to the bridge to see what was going on. One of those pastors heard God speak to him, and God said, "Pray for the man in the red car." That would have been me. I think God's doing a lot more speaking than we are listening, but God was speaking and he was listening, so he got permission to get in the car, crawl under the tarp with the body, and find out that the only thing I didn't break was my right arm. He put his hand on my right arm and he began to pray over the body in the car because God told him to, even though I was a fatality. The moment the truck struck me, I was standing at the gates of heaven, absent from the body, present with the Lord. That's what the Bible says happens, and it does. And I'm surrounded by people I had known and loved in life. The accident happened at 11:45, and that's when this started. It was 1:15 before that gentleman was praying over my dead body and singing the old hymn, "What a Friend We Have in Jesus," and I began to sing it with him. And he got out of the car really fast and went over and said, "The dead man is singing." And that began the rest of my life.
And the EMTs said you're crazy. He's
Pretty
dead.
much, yeah. They thought it was wishful thinking on his part. They said, "Sir, we're medical professionals. We've done everything we can to revive this man, and he's a fatality." And he said, "No, he's singing." They finally convinced him to come over and check on me, and I was not very much alive, but I was alive.
So those 90 minutes in heaven, we've got to touch on that. Tell us about it.
I was surrounded by people I had known and loved in life, people who had preceded me in death. And the first person I saw was my grandfather. I had been with him when he died, and I was very, very close to him. I loved him very much. And so when he died, it was heartbreaking to me. The last time I saw him, he was in a casket at his funeral. Now he's standing in front of me. And in life, he had lost fingers on both hands as a result of some accidents. And he extends his hands to me and speaks a language I've never heard before, but fully understood, and said, "Welcome home, Donnie." That's what he called me here. And I looked down at the hands that held me when I was a little boy, and all of his fingers were there. I had never seen them before. He was perfect in every way. He did not look good the last time I saw him. Now he's fantastic. He's beautiful. All the people I saw there, friends from high school, teachers, aunts, uncles, my next door neighbor, Miss Norris, was standing to the left of me. I often say, you don't sneak up on heaven. Everybody knows who's coming. When you make a decision here to go to heaven, they have a big celebration up there. Your name is written in a book up there called the Lamb's Book of Life. You want your name in this book. And so they were expecting me that day. I don't think in heaven they miss you. I think in heaven they expect you. And they were expecting me. I did not sneak up. They knew I was coming, and they gathered there to meet me. And they had two things in common. The first thing was they were all ready to go when the time came for the end of their lives on earth. Even though some of them were only 18 when they died, they'd given their heart to Christ at an earlier age. My great-grandmother was here. She was 76. They weren't planning to die the day they died, but they were ready when the time comes. So heaven is a prepared place for prepared people. The other thing they had in common is every one of them helped me get there. They played a role in my spiritual life, and they were the reason that I arrived that day.
Were there other senses involved? What did you see, hear, smell?
Heaven is a sensory explosion. Aromas that are off the scale, colors I've never seen before, a magnificent gate that looks like the inside of an oyster. It really is a gate made of pearl. In the very small entrance, you could see a boulevard bisecting the city that appears to be made of gold. That's what it is made out of. It's transparent, but it's gold. It's that pure. There's a hill high and lifted up in the middle of the city. The brightest light of all is coming from that. Heaven is the most real thing that ever happened to me. It's aromas, it's colors, it's touch. It makes, well, this pales in comparison. I've had some wonderful times here on earth, but nothing compares to heaven. And the best thing about it is you're with God. You're with God. Revelation 21 says you are with him and you will be his people and he will be your God. And we're together forever in that place. I can't wait to go back.
So when you were in heaven, you knew you were in heaven.
Absolutely.
Did you have a sense of God awareness? Was there like, what was the sense?
It's palpable. It's a complete presence of God. We would be blinded by the light that I saw there here. So, and God is light. So there's no sun or moon in heaven. They don't need either one of them. God illuminates the place with his majesty and glory. So you're in the presence of God. There is kind of a pinnacle in the middle of the city, and it is the city of God, that's high and lifted up, and the brightest light is coming from that place. And there are thrones there. There's a river flowing from it, the river of life. There's the tree of life growing there. All those things that in the garden we were prohibited from are available to us in heaven. It's so vivid, so dazzling, so real. I can't wait to go back.
Now, I have one more question. I've got so many questions.
I've got a ton of them myself.
I know. It's a little time. Did you think about your family on earth when you were in heaven?
No,
They never entered your mind?
I was expecting them.
Okay.
People often want to know, do people in heaven miss me? Are they watching me? No, not really. They're expecting you. There's no time in heaven. It's eternal. There's no elapse of time. Even though it's linear and propelled forward, there are no clocks. We're not running out of time. It goes on forever. And so in heaven, they're not really missing you. They're really anticipating your arrival. And since there's no time, they'll just pivot. You'll pivot, and they'll be right behind you.
What do you say to the skeptic who just says, okay, you have some great concepts for a good book that's going to sell a lot of copies.
Right.
Why should I believe you?
Well, the two things is all the profits from this book go to support other ministries around the world. I didn't really want to profit from this. So we have a ministry that does that. I'm really not profiting from the book. The other thing is I'm with them 100%. Before I got hit by the big truck, I wouldn't have believed a word of this. Really. I'm not a skeptic about heaven. I never was. I was a skeptic about the fact you could go there and come back and talk about it until I got run over by a big truck. I didn't talk about it for about a year and a half, and I waited 14 years to write the book. So if I was trying to capitalize on it, I'm not very good at it. I really wanted to help people get into heaven, and I wanted to help them have a better trip on the way. Because I know a lot of people, even believers, who are really struggling. They're having a very difficult time with the circumstances of life. And I know what that's like. I was in a hospital bed for 13 months, and I had 34 major surgeries to try to put me back together again.
And that's a whole story in itself, the recovery time, and we don't have time to show all these photos and to talk about it, but I think what we're going to do is we're going to, even after we're off the air here, we're going to keep sitting down with you and we're going to record something and put it up on crossroads360.com, our website, so that we can unpack a little bit more.
Because I really want to dig into how your family was impacted by this,
and they were.
Journey of that. So.
But just in the final minute or so here, Don, maybe you could talk to someone who just believes, well, maybe there is a heaven out there somewhere, but I'm not sure how to get there.
Oh, there is. One of Jesus' own followers, after following him around for 3.5 years, asked the question at what we now know as the Last Supper. All of us are going to have one of those one of these days, the Last Supper. The death rate here on earth is 100%. And so we face that every day in our lives. And Thomas said, how do I get to heaven? And Jesus answered with these words, I am the way. I am the truth and the life. No man comes to the Father except through me. So if you want to go to heaven, you're going to have to go through Jesus. I have been knocked down, but I haven't been knocked out. All those months I was suffering in a bed and 2 years of therapy and rehabilitation. I was in very critical and even depressing condition. And maybe that's where you are right now, but you don't have to stay there. Jesus can give you a full and meaningful life. So just ask him to come into your heart and save you. And he will save you. Heaven will be yours, and you can have a better, more meaningful life on the way to heaven. And I pray that you will do that right now. We want to see you there. I'd love to see you at the gates of heaven someday. And may God help you, give you peace and joy, because you'll know where you're going. And that makes life better every single day, knowing where you're going. And that's our prayer.
And we have prayer lines, Don. Many people call it every day, and you could call right now, talk to someone and say, yes, I want to make that decision. I want to go to heaven in the future. And you could just share your needs or things you're going through. We'd be happy to pray with you about that. And Don, it's been great having you.
My pleasure.
We're going to continue the conversation on crossroads360.com.